Minyo grew up in a small neighborhood in Seoul, South Korea. He was always curious about the world outside of his hometown. He loved reading books about different countries and watching travel shows on TV. He would imagine himself walking through the busy streets of New York, sitting at a cafe in Paris, or hiking in the mountains of Canada. But there was one big problem: Minyo wasn't good at English. In school, he studied hard and memorized a lot of vocabulary. He could write and read fairly well, but when it came to speaking, he would freeze. His mind would go blank, and the words just wouldn't come out. Whenever the teacher asked him to speak in English, his face would turn red, and he would sit there in silence. After starting university, Minyo got a part-time job at a small cafe near the campus. He worked hard, saving money to help his family and cover his school expenses. One evening, while he was cleaning tables, a tall foreign man walked into the cafe. He had blonde hair and blue eyes and looked lost. The man walked up to the cashier and said something in English, but the cashier didn't understand. "I don't understand," the cashier said nervously. Minyo watched for a moment, then slowly walked over. "A coffee?" he asked carefully. "Hot or cold?" The man smiled and said, "Hot, please." Minyo quickly made the coffee and handed it to him. The man smiled again. "Thank you." Minyo nodded shyly. "No problem." The man laughed. "I'm Daniel," he said, holding out his hand. Minyo hesitated, then shook it. Minyo. From that day on, Daniel started coming to the cafe often. He would sit near the counter and talk to Minyo whenever it wasn't busy. At first, Minyo was nervous. His English was slow, and he made a lot of mistakes. But Daniel was very patient. He would smile and wait for Minyo to finish his sentences. Sometimes, he would gently correct Minyo's grammar, but he never made him feel embarrassed. "Don't worry about mistakes," Daniel said one day. "Just keep talking." Over time, Minyo became more comfortable. His sentences became longer, and he started understanding more of what Daniel said. They became close friends and started spending time together. Outside of the cafe, Daniel took Minyo to famous Korean restaurants and historic places. They ate spicy tteokbokki at a street stall, grilled samgyeopsal pork belly at a barbecue restaurant, and tried different types of kimchi. Minyo taught Daniel how to use chopsticks, and Daniel taught Minyo new English words while they ate. They sat down on a bench in the palace garden. Minyo hesitated before speaking. "Daniel, I've been thinking about something," he said quietly. Daniel turned to him. "What is it?" I want to go to Canada," Minyo said. "To study English." Daniel's eyes widened. "Really?" Minyo nodded slowly. "Yeah. But I'm scared. What if I can't understand anything? What if I make too many mistakes?" Daniel smiled. "It's normal to feel that way. But you'll never know unless you try." Daniel leaned toward him. "Then how about this? If you go to Canada, I'll go with you." Minyo's eyes widened. "What? You'd really do that?" "Of course," Daniel said. "I'll help you settle in. We'll figure it out together." Minyo felt a mix of fear and excitement growing in his chest. Maybe this dream wasn't so impossible after all. After a few months of saving money and getting his visa approved, Minyo finally boarded a plane to Toronto, Canada. Daniel met him at the airport and helped him find a small apartment. Minyo managed to prepare the order, but his hands were shaking. After the customer left, he sighed in frustration. "That was hard," he told Daniel later. "I couldn't understand him at first." "That's okay," Daniel said. "You'll get better. Just give it time." After working for a few months, Minyo applied to a local college to study business. Daniel helped him with the application, and Minyo was accepted. But school was tough. The professors spoke fast, and Minyo often struggled to keep up with the lectures. He would sit in class, trying to write down notes, but the words flew by too quickly. One day, Minyo had to give a presentation in front of the class. He had practiced with Daniel the night before, but when he stood in front of everyone, his mind went blank. His palms were sweating, and his heart was racing. His voice shook. He forgot the next sentence and stood there, frozen. Minyo's face turned red. He glanced at Daniel, who was sitting in the back of the room, giving him a thumbs up. Minyo took a deep breath and tried again. "My name is Minyo and today I will talk about business strategy." It wasn't perfect, but he managed to get through it. After class, Daniel walked over and patted him on the back. Minyo also had trouble during group projects. His classmates spoke quickly, using slang and expressions he didn't understand. "Okay, so we'll brainstorm some ideas and then bounce them off each other," one student said. Minyo blinked. "Bounce them off?" Another student sighed. "It means we'll share ideas and see what works." "Okay," Minyo said quietly. One day, Minyo was working at the restaurant when an elderly woman came in. She was carrying a heavy bag of groceries. Minyo quickly walked over to help her. "Thank you, dear," the woman said. "That's very kind of you." Minyo smiled. "No problem." "Are you okay?" Minyo's heart lifted. He had spoken English naturally without even thinking about it. A few days later, during another group project, Minyo spoke up without hesitation. "Maybe we can organize the ideas like this," he suggested. His classmates agreed. "That's a great idea," one of them said. Minyo smiled. It wasn't perfect, but he was starting to feel more comfortable. His English was improving slowly, but steadily. After years of hard work, Minyo finally graduated from college. Daniel was there, clapping and cheering when Minyo received his diploma. "You did it," Daniel said afterward. Minyo smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you." "You did most of it yourself," Daniel said. Minyo realized that Daniel was right. Daniel had helped him, but it was Minyo's determination and hard work that had brought him this far. After graduating, Minyo got a job at a company that helped Canadian immigrants settle into their new lives. His job was to help them with paperwork, find housing, and adjust to life in Canada. Minyo understood how hard it was to live in a foreign country and learn a new language. So he worked with care and patience. He spoke slowly to the immigrants who struggled with English and encouraged them when they felt overwhelmed. His co-workers and managers noticed how good he was at his job and how much the immigrants trusted him. "Minyo, you're really good at this," his manager said one day. "You make people feel comfortable." Minyo smiled. "I know how they feel," he said. "I was in their shoes not too long ago." Minyo worked there for 2 years, gaining experience and confidence. But after a while, he started thinking about home. He missed Korea, his family, the food, and the familiar streets of Seoul. He also started thinking about how hard it had been for him to learn English, and how many other students in Korea were struggling the same way. One evening, Minyo met up with Daniel at their favorite cafe. "I've been thinking about going back to Korea," Minyo said. Daniel raised his eyebrows. "Really?" Minyo nodded. "I want to help students in Korea learn English, students like me who don't have much money or confidence. I want to teach them that it's possible to learn English if you keep trying." Daniel smiled. "That sounds like a great idea." But Minyo hesitated. "I was also thinking, what if I stayed in Canada and helped students from Korea come here to study English?" Daniel's eyes widened. "You mean start a business?" Minyo nodded. "Yeah. There are so many language programs here, but they're expensive. A lot of students in Korea can't afford them. What if I created a program where students could work part-time, live with local families, and learn English in real-life situations like I did?" Daniel's face lit up. "That's brilliant." After a few months of planning, Minyo started his own language program. He partnered with local families to provide affordable housing for students. He also worked with small businesses to offer part-time jobs, so students could support themselves while learning English. At first, it was tough. Minyo had to work long hours to set everything up, but slowly, students from Korea started coming. They appreciated the affordable prices and the supportive environment. Minyo taught them how to speak confidently and patiently corrected their mistakes, just like Daniel had done for him. One day, Daniel visited one of Minyo's language classes. He watched as Minyo helped a nervous student practice a conversation. "Take your time," Minyo said softly. "It's okay to make mistakes." After the class, Daniel smiled. "You've really built something amazing." Minyo grinned. "I couldn't have done it without you." Daniel laughed. "You did most of it yourself. I just gave you a little push." Minyo knew Daniel was right. His journey had started with a small act of curiosity, helping a stranger at a cafe. But it was his hard work and determination that had carried him across borders, and into a future he had once thought impossible.